Good morning. Let's get started. Welcome to the 2012 IDD and Informatics Symposium Driving Discovery, Improving Health. And we hope to be a first of those symposium series, and we hope that we'll redo this in the future again. For those who don't know me, my name is GQ Zhang, and I'm professor of computer science in the engineering school. I also wear the hats of division chief of medical informatics and co-director for BRIM, Biomedical Informatics Core of CTSA, and also co-associate director for Case Comprehensive Cancer Center for Cancer Informatics. The age of big data is upon us. For those of us who has worked in this field, we sort of saw it coming. We see the research paradigm change has been gradually shifting from a hypothesis-driven one to a data or discovery-driven one. And so there are lots of data that need to be used. However, the challenge is that data are being generated at a faster rate than we can analyze them. And so how do we meet this data tsunami challenge? That's one of the topics we're going to hope to discuss and brainstorm today and get some ideas. But in the end, it's not about the data itself. It's actually about informatics. It's about how to use the data to generate new knowledge and useful knowledge to improve the health and well-being of the whole population. So we are gathered here today to showcase some of the impact and achievements that informatics has been able to bring to us, and also share our experiences, achievements, and facilitate a dialogue to address many of the challenges that are still remaining for us to address. At Case Western here, we're fortunate to have a visionary and inspiring leader who has an acute appreciation of the role of informatics in driving discovery and improving health. And it has been such a strong supporter who has led the effort to overcome organizational and cultural changes and garner resources to support and help moving informatics forward on this campus. And for example, leading the creation of a new institute called Health Informatics and Comparative Effective Research. So today's symposium is actually a reflection of the vision of this leader and Dean Pam Davis. And Pam is one of the only 14 women serving as deans of this country. And she's a university vice president for medical affairs and holds the chair of Arlene Curtis Garvin Research Professor. She's a PI of the Cleveland CTSA, Clinical Translational Science Award, and which we're embarking or on the verge of the next 5 years in the renewal. In her own research, Pam has led substantial contributions to the treatment and understanding of cystic fibrosis. So please join me here and welcome Pam, who will say a few words to us.
Well, thank you, GQ. That was very, very kind. I am, in fact, interested in informatics and in big data. Since last month, the Encyclopedia Britannica announced that it will stop publishing print editions, I had to go to Wikipedia to learn that every day there are 2.5 quintillion bytes of data created. A quintillion is a 1 with 18 zeros after it. 90% of the data in the world today has been created in the last 2 years. So I joined GQ to welcoming you to the world of big data. I knew I was really hooked on big data when I learned about a study led by David Kalber using the Explorus technology to replicate a Swedish study on venous thromboembolic events. The Swedish study took researchers about 18 years to compile, starting around 1994. With the data set from Explorus, and we have the medical advisor, director for Explorus here today, Anil Jain. With the data set from Explorus, Dr. Kalber completed his study in about 2 months from idea to submission, and he increased the size of the patient sample 40-fold. It's big data time. Last week, the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy announced a big data research and development initiative. Within this, the NIH and the National Science Foundation announced a joint solicitation for developing technologies needed to rein in big data. As GQ mentioned, we have a lot of data that may not lead to information. So perhaps we can look at our symposium today as a preview of what's to come. We don't plan to be sitting back to watch this new technology unfold. We are partnering across the state of Ohio in the Governor's Medical Corridor Challenge to advance biomedical research informatics. Phil Payne from Ohio State, who's here, one of our speakers today, is leading the informatics component of our statewide collaboration. We anticipate enhanced capabilities and access to populations and data will increase our capacity to secure research funding and also hopefully reduce statewide healthcare expenditures and lead to quality improvement and facilitate comparative effectiveness research. So we're hoping that this will have a number of ripples that will benefit in many areas. The CTSA at the CWRU School of Medicine has also been actively engaged in developing informatics tools to embrace this emerging technology. We are pretty sure we're going to be here for the next 5 years, but we are awaiting information from the NIH. We got a pretty good score, though, so if they're not funding us, they're probably not funding many other people either. But we'll be able to make a good investment in informatics in the next round of the CTSA. So at the lunch break today, you'll have a chance to see all at once an array of informatics tools that are available to you from the Biomedical Research Informatics Management Core of the CTSA, the BRIM. You will see that we have a lot to offer. As you learn about these tools, please keep in mind that this is not an academic exercise. These are real and available, and I think leading edge, ontology-driven. They have been or are being deployed. They are created to solve real information management problems, and I think you'll hear from Susan Redline today about her collaboration in one of those tools. These are tools at your disposal to use right now. And I encourage you to have a look at them and to embrace them if they're appropriate for your work. You know, we're delighted to be able to share these tools, and I want to acknowledge that this symposium was made possible through the NIH and a CTSA supplement to disseminate the PhysioMimi technology created by GQ Zhang's group in collaboration with clinical researchers like Susan. I think she'll highlight some of the PhysioMimi project as a model for teamwork later this morning. This is a great model, and it evolved in a true partnership between informaticians and clinicians, and that kind of interaction is really key, and we're delighted to see the variety of individuals who came this morning to talk about this. At Case Western Reserve, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our provost, Bud Bazelak, who had the vision and leadership to establish an Informatics Alliance group a little bit later than the original set of alliances that were established, but it seemed so important that he was willing to put it through. This facilitates cross-pollination of ideas through collaboration across the schools of engineering, nursing, dental school, the Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences, and the Weatherhead School of Management, as well as, of course, the medical school. And it helps us to take a coordinated approach to informatics across campus. And it has made resources available to spur collective projects. So we're proud to bring together the perspectives of these various disciplines because we think that collaborations lead to innovation. Steve Jobs once said, "A lot of people in our industry haven't had very diverse experiences, so they don't have enough dots to connect. They end up with very linear solutions without a broad perspective on the problem. The broader one's understanding of the human experience, the better the design we will have." So we think this cross-pollination matrix is absolutely critical, and all of you in this room bring an array of expertise to connect the dots amongst technology, research, and medicine. Our audience and our distinguished panel of speakers represent institutions across Ohio, as well as the University of Michigan, the University of Pittsburgh, Harvard, and beyond, and as well as the private sector, the commercial sector. We hope that this meeting will help you start to connect the dots and use big data to drive research innovations and advance human health. Thank you to GQ for your leadership in developing the informatics infrastructure and for our clinical and translational research programs. And thank you all for being with us. I think it's going to be a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. That's very nice. And I would also indicate that actually the provost did join us for dinner last night with our speaker group. And so that just to show that he's paying a lot of attention to this area. We have a compact program today. In the morning, we'll have 5 prominent informaticians, leaders, lead thinkers to talk about the experience, achievements, and vision in terms of the future of informatics. Then we'll have a half an hour break in between 3 talks and then 2 talks. After that, we'll break for lunch. Actually, it's a little bit earlier. It's going to be 11:30. We will leave 2 hours for both luncheon and also for play with the tools and discussion and things like that. Then we will regroup at 1:30 so that collectively we can have a panel discussion so that the audience can ask questions to the panel. The panel can ask questions to each other, and also we'll gather the questions and answers that's generated from the lunch break to summarize them so that those who may have missed that or not in the discussion may have a panoramic view of what's happening during lunch break. So again, in addition to the sponsorship and the support from CTSA, from the Informatics Alliance, from the supplement fund from the CTSA also, I also would like to acknowledge those a team of dedicated staff members who actually helped put this symposium together in a very short period of time. Shannon Suatowski and Ginny Petrie, Justin White, Jerry Androsko, and Catherine Jayapandan, who manages the website, and the rest of the members, Sri Satya from the Division of Medical Informatics, CTSA Administrative Corps, CTSC Administrative Corps locally, and there may be a couple of others that I may have missed. And let's get started with our first speaker, Brian Athey. Dr. Athey is professor and chair of Department of Computational Medicine and Bioinformatics at the University of Michigan Medical School. He is the founding principal investigator of the NIH National Center for Integrative Medical Informatics. He also serves as Biomedical Informatics Director for Michigan's Clinical Translational Science Award, CTSA there. He's the Associate Director of the Michigan Institute for Clinical and Health Research. And it seems each of the CTSA has either a center or institute as overarching infrastructure to support it. In his past role, Brian has served as Director of Academic Informatics from the University of Michigan Medical School, a special advisor to the CIO of the NIH, and also advisor to DARPA, a founding member and former broad chairman of the board chairman of the nonprofit Scientists and Engineers of America. So Brian is going to talk about informatics for integrating biology and bedside.
It's great to be here, and it's great to see so many friends. I was part of the PhysioMimi team, and the thing is so nice is that Michael and I have worked together for years, and with Philip, we all work together, really. And I appreciate you letting me sneak across the border from Michigan. Ann Arbor is only 45 minutes from Ohio. Actually, I've been involved with the CTSA at Michigan before it started. In fact, I'm the longest serving faculty member within our CTSA program at this point. We got there before it started. The title here, actually integrating biology and bedside, is reminiscent of I2B2, which is Zach Kahani's center, which was mentioned by the Dr. Collins at the Big Data opening last week at the AAAS meeting. And so as will be required of all of us soon, here is my conflict of interest. And I no longer work at the NIH. As many of you know, I worked there at the Office of the Director for several years. However, I did write the report on big data before I left, based on the Networking and Information Technology Research and Development report from PCAS, the Presidential Advisory Group. And I do work now quite closely with the OSTP. Here's an outline. Actually, I was asked to give the introductory talk here and frame this big data discussion a little bit, and that's really what this talk is about. And, but I also wanted to link the science and the emerging science that will lead us to personalized medicine and healthcare. And with specific focus on academic health centers, since that's where we're from. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about a relatively new project called Transmart that I'm the North American lead for, and just frame the discussion in terms of questions that we might have in discussions across the day. There's our problem. Everybody wants to live in that house right over there, but that's mine. That's obviously what we're trying to do, is bring people together. Now, this Pascal's quadrant here, it kind of shows some of the problem. We have the classic information technology groups, which are more of a command and control kind of function, highly centralized. And then over here, we have the NIH culture, which is let 1,000 flowers bloom, and somewhere in the middle, we have to find happiness. Well, the real thing is that we need to prioritize, and one of the things that really impressed me at the dinner last night with the provost was the list of priorities that Case Western Reserve University has in how the faculty hiring and the development of the academic enterprise is based on priorities. And I think that's just right, because we must team and collaborate. Now, in terms of the revolution that we're in, these next few slides come from my colleague Leroy Hood at the Institute for Systems Biology. And the focus of this discussion is big data and analytics. And I would say that analytics and data need to be together. And I mean, you can think of analytics as having a computing component. And think about computing and data. Analytics and data, I think we need to think of as one set to a certain degree. And then, of course, the social and business networks. And it's no secret that the computing that we use in the future is this, and iPads and things like this. This is where the growth in computing is. So it's the merger of these three things in our academic health centers that's creating the digital revolution. And the other thing, of course, are all the data kind of types that are surrounding everyone. So and with 10 years from now, in the vision of the P4 medicine, what we will have is all of us having clouds of data around us that will interoperate, hopefully, with our electronic health record systems in the so-called learning health system. Now, here's the slide from the PCAS report that led to the Big Data Initiative. And, as the dean pointed out, the data volumes are growing exponentially from a lot of different sources. And the thing that forced the administration, with John Holdren leading from OSTP in bringing NIH and NSF and DARPA and NOAA and so on into the meeting last week, was this statement here, which is in that report, every federal agency needs to have a big data strategy. And so NIH couldn't get around it. They had to do something. The science. Here's a list of the kinds of things that informatics can give us. Obviously, we have to deal with the avalanche of the high throughput data and make sense of it and link it to the so-called phenotypic record and aggregate it up and do population studies, which is a challenge, really. Lots of challenges there, not the least of which individualized medicine puts another spin on it. And then, of course, we need the cyber infrastructure, and that includes the people. And one of the challenges that we all, Mike and I and Philip, at the dinner, and with Anil, I mean, where are these people that are going to do all these wonderful things? And then we need to include other data, right? The environmental data. The phenotype is the gene by environment. Where's the environmental data? You can't do it all with SNPs. And then this tension between the electronic health record that needs to be secure and private and the openness and sharing that we have to have in the academic work that we do. And then all the wonderful things that we can create with this, the new discoveries, including new ways to develop drugs, which is a focus of NCATS, and we need to more about that as we go forward. Here's the way to look at these levels here from the genotypic and the transcriptomic and the epigenomic and out in the cytoplasm of the cell. You have all this stuff happening, mediated by regulatory elements in the DNA and ultimately creating proteome and networks. So from here up is the systems biology, cellular systems biology. And somehow, it's a network of networks that needs to be developed, which every plane, you have a complex set of interactions that need to be integrated. It's really a challenge as we go up to the population level. But, and this is the psychiatry background in me, we can develop endophenotypes and, ultimately information models that will help us to utilize this information to ask and answer questions. Here's another view. I encourage everybody to look at this report if you haven't already. This comes from the Sorger report, NIGMS website on computational systems pharmacology, which I believe will be important in our thinking about NCATs. And so here's your list up and down. All those little levels down there all the way up to the cell is just kind of put into here. And then, going up through the levels. But it's really this way that I want you to look at for a minute, because this is the interest that NCATS has. Because what we are going to be doing is looking for new compounds and their effectiveness and take them first into humans. Here's another one of Lee's slides. This is a nice way to think of things. So here's the generation. So this could be omics and imaging and other things. So the idea would be that the high throughput data, the big data, if you will, which would be aggregated, would come up from the bottom, and it passes through a filter of computational biology and bioinformatics and the kinds of things that were bringing us together today. But on top of this sits the research, the driving problems, whether it be clinical research or translational or basic research or comparative effectiveness. So it's a good way to think of it. So, it's really a systems biology approach, systems medicine approach that sits here in the middle. Okay, some examples. These come from Peter Tonoletto and Dennis Wall, a few slides from Harvard Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital pathology department, thinking about genome-wide association studies and other genomics studies as applied to developing personalized medicine and healthcare. So here are some of the details, and this is GQ, why we do need the computer scientists and all those folks that I want to meet at lunchtime, because we need these algorithms, and frankly, we can make a block diagram and figure out exactly, not only in terms of the analytic component on the data, but in terms of the annotation component. So the analytics would be more the computer science aspects, the annotation components would be more of the informatics pieces. Here's the flow diagram, and this is the kind of stuff that's coming out. The pathology departments across the country want to own this space. They look at this as quite lucrative space. And this whole idea of oncogenic tumor profiling is very big right now, although we need to be warned that things are more complicated than they look, and I refer you to the recent publication in the New England Journal on renal carcinoma and the difficulty and the heterogeneity of the genomic information within the tumor will make this vision difficult, I think, to achieve, but it's still there. Now, we hear a lot about cloud computing. You've got to have a few of those, and I'm hoping that we have a chance to talk about cloud computing. And obviously, I love this because it reminds me of that old Pioneer Stereo advertisement from the 70s. Remember? Yeah, you remember. We're old enough. Where you're sitting there and the speakers just blasting the sound at you. Well, here are all these different technologies, including new technologies like those nanopore technologies, which are going to give extraordinarily long read lengths. So much of this is fragment stuff. I was speaking with Lee Hood the other day, and he was talking about read lengths of 5 kb to 50 kb coming out of these pores, cleanly. So it's not only the throughput, like the Auditorium machines that are going to give you the genome for $500 in 4 hours. It's the read lengths, which is going to allow us to do everything quite a bit differently. And then, and part of the big data announcement last week is putting the 1,000 Genomes project, out there into the Amazon cloud. The challenge is, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to process it? Especially since the coverage is relatively low, 5 or 6x. There are good papers, including the structural variation paper by Mills et al. That I think can help us with this. So lots to think about. Now, George Post, who some of you know, who's in Arizona now, former pharma guy, working with the FDA, came up with this kind of slide here, just to show all the details involved in genomic medicine and what we're really up against to make this, take it from discovery to actual application. And so, and I'll leave all these slides behind. Okay, so the vision for personalized medicine at Mayo Clinic is clinomics. What's that? Well, Genrico told me that clinomics was all those little levels, and he had such a hard time explaining it to his board of trustees, he decided he was just going to call it clinomics. Epigenomics, and I think for some of our neuropsychiatric diseases like schizophrenia, this is going to, in bipolar disorder, that's going to be important. Pharmacogenomics, we're also already having some good luck there. In practice, especially in psychiatry. Microbiome, I don't know how much you guys have going on over around here or in your institutions, but it's huge at our place and it will grow, and it's fascinating. And, this biomarker, there's the loaded term that I think we're going to have to get our head around for NCATs. Now, here's the next slide on this PCAST NITR-D report. And these are the elements that I pulled out for the Office of the Director back in when I was working there, out of that report that touched the NIH and touched genomics. And so I think you can refer back to this chart, and I really want you to take a look at this report that's out on the web from the OSTP site. It was published at the end of November of 2010 now? So it's, took a while to process this all out there. But these are the directives that came from downtown. One of them that was, and I worked with Dr. Tabik on this one a little bit, on this language here. But this was the vision recommendation 3 out of that report, to create this dynamic omics, analytics, and data management infrastructure. So think about it. Highly heterogeneous data here going up and down the stack, including cognitive and behavioral measures. Think NIH Promise as an example for how some of those measures might be collected and analyzed. Here's Bill Stead's vision that he created in 2005 for the Vanderbilt University Medical Center in terms of, think of these as gears. So now we have the data vision, but now what we want to see is how the data will interoperate and inform each other in a constructive way, in a virtuous circle, to create a learning health system. I think this is the earliest version of this that I've seen. So there's the GQ and his group over here, you guys, and all this kind of stuff that Anil does over here. I'm more in the basic science area, like this. And so there's your algorithms. There's kind of the population reporting that's so important for, the meaningful use metrics. I mean, that's what it's all about, guys, right there in terms of on the EHR side. And so this is, I think, a wonderful view of the world. Lots of systems engineering to think about. Now, this comes from Moffitt Cancer Center. And Bill Dalton showed this at the Institute of Medicine Informatics, Cancer Informatics Summit a couple weeks ago that I participated in. There's one more view that's missing. When I showed this slide the other day in front of my deans, all the chairs, and the dean's an education dean in our place, and not having this education portal into that infrastructure over there cost me a little bit. I went through it kind of quickly, but the researcher has a view, the patient has a view. This patient portal, at Moffitt, 92% of the patients going into Moffitt interact with their data before they get there. That's where we're going. We have to be there, and we are weak on this part. And the administrator, we'll acknowledge that. They like dashboards. And the clinician. So we need this kind of integrated infrastructure to achieve that realizes Bill's vision. So here's Moffitt's, view of the world. What I went in and told my leadership was, look, I'm tired of the word data warehouse. It just has this, it's kind of like stuff is sitting on a shelf over here. That's not the way Amazon works. It's a factory. Now what's missing from this diagram are the data marts. So, we have a real expert sitting in the audience over here in our speaker, Mike Bisich, on this one, and how an honest broker system works at scale, because it's not the kind of algorithmic view that kind of we brought to the table in Physiomimi, which is a good view, a rules-based view. It's people and algorithms. It could involve the regulatory and compliance groups that allow for the safe and secure sharing of the data out of the to bring forward research data, and bring forward transient looks that can be utilized for the creation of registries or for research purposes in the data mart. Okay, SMART, I2B2. At 1 o'clock today at our Informatics Key Function Committee meeting that we will all probably miss, Sean Murphy will be speaking about I2B2 SMART. So that was funded by the SHARP initiative. So what's that? So how many folks know about I2B2? Everybody. That's excellent. And Dr. Collins had mentioned I2B2 in the second sentence of his talk last week at AAAS about big data. And I was on the phone with the PI, Zach Kahane, a few days ago, and I said, boy, Zach, it's really great that, Collins had, mentioned your work right at the beginning of his talk. He knew nothing about it. Well, that's the beauty of it. It's gone viral. And I2B2 SMART is an extension of I2B2. So think of, this is the data feed coming out of the clinical data repositories over here kind of thing. And here's I2B2, which is this data mart capability. And think of a wrapper around I2B2 called SMART. Okay? What does that get you? It allows you to create an app store on I2B2 because we're going towards apps. And you want to launch the app. So the I2B2 screen that we're used to looking at is there, right? But here's the app store. And that's where I2B2 is going. And so, and then you can, so Meducation is, so that's improving medication safety through patient-centered multi-language instructions. That's an app that's currently running right now at Children's Hospital against the Cerner system in an I2B2 SMART frame funded by SHARP in the demonstration project. And so, this is where we're going. So you can have clinical research apps that can be launched this way. You can have patient education apps with, various levels of priority and planning that could be adjunct to the patient portals. This is what I'm working on at the University of Michigan against the enterprise. There's the I2B2, and we have this running against our enterprise. Not fast enough, I only update it every couple of weeks. I got to get it near real time. It's not easy. It's not done. It's a demonstration. So here's our feeds coming in here, and then it's wrapped by the smart container, and then you can launch these various smart apps. That's the demonstration that I'm working on with Harvard right now. There's another one that several, maybe you folks, are involved. The Shrine demo, the national demo that's funded by the CTSA supplement. Currently I have 5 sites. I think we're going to have 7. We're ready to go. This goes back to the old Spin Pathology Information Network work that Mike Ludd started years ago, and Zach. We're finally, 15 years later, we're doing the demos. I think it'll work. We're doing it in autism and type 2 diabetes. And it's really using ICD-9 codes. It's just the beginning. Okay, Transmart. Transmart, anybody heard of it? It's something to know about. It's a big project. Transmart spun out of the Johnson & Johnson Corporation. Eric Paraskos was the person who was the PI of that project. He is now the chief scientist and chief information officer of the Food and Drug Administration. Transmart is widely used in Europe in something called the Innovative Medicines Initiative, version 4, which is the equivalent to the European Union NIH structure that allows for translational research. And so in Europe, there's a great deal of data sharing between companies, pre-competitively, drug companies, Sanofi, Millennium, Novartis, Johnson & Johnson, 10 companies which are being brought together to share data around certain diseases and condition research like asthma. And then what the government does is they incentivize the academic researchers, us, who are working in the clinical and translation, to work with the drug companies, and then the drug companies give the data in kind contributions, frankly, money, and then the government matches into the money one-to-one and creates a data sharing collaborative, analytic collaborative. This is on the scope of $2 billion, okay? This is a big effort. Check it out. Something called e-Tricks, and it's all based on the use of a platform called Transmart that was developed by Eric for Johnson & Johnson and then spun out, and all the pharmaceutical companies across the world are adopting this as their data sharing and analytics platform. So what is it? Those are words. Those are words. Let's get to pictures. We have a vision. It's for sharing data. It's to bring data and analytics together in some kind of standard way. 40% of the code base of Transmart is I2B2. One of the things that was fascinating is all the code that's being used in Europe right now to run all these big studies was developed in the United States. But we're not funding it here. So there had to be a change. So that's what this is kind of about. So you mentioned the search capability and the analytic capability over here. In Transmart, you can do both of those things. Here's a little bit about the study data. Recombinant was the group that put this together for J&J in the first place. Now they're part of something called the Transmart Foundation, which is a not-for-profit, C6. I should maybe update. I'm a board member there. I actually chair the board of that operation. And it's all in the public domain. We have everything has been released from Johnson & Johnson out into a GPL license and is available on transmartproject.org. And so these are the curated data, big problem. Pharma does it, we don't. There are a lot of interesting issues that are popping up in the launch of Transmart in the United States, I'll tell you. And this is the kind of thing, I'm mentioning this because NCATS wants this, okay? We know that part. Okay, so there's I2B2 here. The tools, and some of the data from national repositories like NCBI and EBI and so on. Curated content, which members who are participating in the public-private partnerships have to give up into the system, and NLP capabilities. And this, J&J calls it a data warehouse. I call it a data mart. And then you have mining and analytics capabilities. Here's some screenshots. I didn't actually bring a demo. The demos run nice. This is the old I2B2 screens. And so I2B2 is being forced to interoperate with the molecular component, the molecular data and the molecular analytics. And so, so if you think of that slice diagram, You feed up all that into the I2B2, and so Transmart allows you to do both. In the early days, it got into SNPs, and you know, there's much more that we're putting into it now. So it's community. We're looking at this like Red Cap, Apache, Mozilla, this kind of thing. This is a community. This is the only way you can do something like this. Nobody's going to own this. Nobody's going to develop it. Now, you can have committers, you know? You know how that works? I mean, you know, Red Cap, for example, is an open source community. There's committers. You know, there are 4 sites across the country, in addition to Vanderbilt, that can modify the code and add to it. They have a certain degree of competence and understanding, and not everybody can do that. Anybody could send in their ideas. But, you know, we have committers across the world that are coming in who are working, many of them from pharma. Okay, and so there's different tiers of service that are imagined, including hiring somebody to help you with all this on the I2B2 model. And so what does all this allow you to do? This is back to Bill's stat. All this new data coming into the system is more than we can bring into our mind. It's like this whole, you know, zettabytes that the dean was talking about. You know, and so all these little molecular, you know, we have limited bandwidth mentally, cognitively, and for decision support to occur, we need these systems that will allow us to aggregate and integrate and analyze the big data. Okay, and so there's some ideas that are being bandied around with regard to the Transmart community. Check out transmartproject.org. Okay, here is the group. You know, these drug companies are driving this, and they're going to pay money to keep this going. There's no question about that one. This is Transmart Foundation that keeps the code. I have a partner in European Union. It's E.K. Gao, who works at University College London and is the PI of the very large ETRIX initiative that's utilizing Transmart in Europe. Here's the government folks that are either participating or are in. Here are some of the committers. CDISC is big in this. I2B2, of course. Mark wants to play. Sage Bionetworks, who's heard of them? Good. Check it out, Stephen Friend. The Synapse tool, which I highly encourage you to look at, has been fully embedded into Transmart, and that will be a workspace. Okay, almost done here. I hope I'm okay, GQ. IT. Could be for anything in healthcare. This is Lee's slide. I love this list. You know, and I'll leave it behind because I think this is a really modern list for the kinds of things that, you know, I've been speaking about informatics. But there's this, you know, holy or unholy alliance between informatics and IT, and GQ has been referring to this. And the bottom line is if we don't have the infrastructure to support our work at scale, at the enterprise scale, that's why I've been focusing on all these I2P2s and this kind of thing, it's not going to work, basically. And the challenges, this list of challenges is, I think, and opportunities is appropriate, including gold standard data sets. Big issue. And the other thing to talk about, you know, and to be honest with you, I've become more, you know, I guess I'm more of a bioinformatician, you know, professional. So, you know, we had the Bermuda agreements, you know, and everybody had to put their sequence data into the repository at midnight or else, you know, you wouldn't get paid. Well, over in the clinical research area, it's a different, I've learned, Philip, it's a different story. And, you know, I can tell you that one public-private partnership that I'm involved in called One Mind for Research, check that one out. It's about neuropsychiatric diseases, largely PTSD and traumatic brain injury. God, the big thing that I've been having trouble with over there is getting people to share anything. You know, they don't want to share the data. So Stephen Friend and I will go around to these researchers and say, gee, you know, if you share your data, you're actually going to get more people thinking about it, more people working on it. And they're like, stay away from me. When I publish my paper and I get my grant and I get promoted, I'll talk to you later. This is a big problem. Much more big problem than I really realized. So listen, we're in a great field, you know? Informatics is wonderful. Partnering with researchers on the top of that chart of Lee's to utilize the informatics capability and map into the IT is really the future, and I remain optimista. as I think we all should. So thanks very much, and I want to thank some of the folks over the years that have been supporting my efforts in Ann Arbor. And, you know, as many of you know, we have a wonderful group there. And Kevin is helping me, Kevin Smith, who worked with you guys on Physiomimi, is the one helping me with Transmart. He's doing a great job. Thanks a lot. I hope this was helpful.